Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a new game of StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm. Now, a lot of you have been requesting a little bit of a longer game of Zerg versus Terran. So here we go, this is the game that I actually played last night on the live stream. If you don't know what a live stream is, I currently am streaming pretty much every single day. Click the link in the description, it will take you straight to the live stream. Shameless self-plugging right there, but this is going to be a Zerg versus Terran played on Frost Alley, and indeed it is going to be a macro ZVT that goes a little bit into the later game. So instead of like going for something cheesy, maybe a Roach Bane bus, which I've been doing quite a bit, or just simply pushing at +1/+1 or +2/+2, I decided to actually play this one out a lot longer. I actually don't remember if that is because my opponent manages to defend all the pushes I do, or simply because I don't feel like attacking, but you know, we will find out together. So we are going to watch this game completely through my vision, which means that we are mostly going to talk about the things that I was thinking about while playing this game, and then hopefully we'll be able to explain to you the reasoning behind all the things that I was doing in this game. Now, obviously, we do have the production tab open, so we can kind of see what Marine King, you know, it's not the real Marine King, obviously, but we can kind of see what Marine King is doing in this game, and we can have a look at, you know, what he is producing and how we respond to that and all that kind of awesomeness. So I'm just going to open up. Considering this is a 4-player map and considering it is Zerg versus Terran, you should pretty much always open up with a hatchery first. Opening up with something else than a hatchery first is just kind of unnecessary, unless you like know that you're much better at macro and you know your opponent kind of, you know, is a cheesy player, then you might be considering going for a pool first. But other than that, I would pretty much always advise you to go for a hatchery first, just because it will allow you a lot better of defense if your opponent goes for anything else than a proxy 2 Rex. So currently, obviously, this is a 4-player map. I'm scouting to both corners of the map right now with my overlords, so we should be 100% safe going for this build right now. Now, it looks like I'm also gonna open up with a gas before the actual spawning pool, or no, I'm actually gonna go for a 17 spawning pool right there, a little bit of a later one. Doesn't really matter whether or not you go 15 hatch 16 pool or 15 hatch 17 pool. The difference is really that minor that you don't really need to worry about it. Normally on smaller maps you do need to worry about it a little bit, because you kind of have this risk where Reapers can sort of come in your base and just, you know, basically fuck shit up. But right now it should be fine, just me macroing out of this just fine. Now it looks like he is going for an SCV scout. Now an SCV scout to me is an indication that he is probably not gonna go Reaper. Now that is something you can't really say for sure, because obviously he might just be scouting, but it kind of indicates to me, okay, if he's willing to invest into an SCV scout, why would he ever go for a Reaper as well, if the Reaper is much faster at scouting and it wouldn't cost him any mineral losses, right? So I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of putting him on something else than a Reaper expand right now. So as we can see on the production tab as well, this is indeed a super quick command center by my opponent, so I am good to go right now without gas, guys. Now there's a little bit of a gamble, because obviously if my opponent decides to go for a ton of Reapers right now, I would have a problem, but that is so uncommon, and we saw an SCV scout, so I'm gonna go with a gasless opener right now. Gotta get my queens a little bit earlier than you would normally see them. The reason for that is simply that I will have a lot more room for creep spreading. Now creep spread in ZVT is absolutely crucial. ZVP not so much. ZVZ, you know, only if you really feel like it, it's not really necessary at all, but ZVT without creep spread is pretty much unplayable. It's definitely the matchup where you need to have your creep spread out as far as possible, and when you lose the queen that is actually spreading creep, you will want to replace it, because you need to have the creep all over the map, because that is simply where you can take proper engagements. Now it looks like I made a couple of Marines, or a couple of Zerglings rather. Gotta see if I can do something in his natural, but it looks like he already has the bunker up, indicating to me that he will definitely have a natural up, so that means I will be able to just simply macro out of this. So I will be able to get a third base relatively quickly. I usually want to get that right around the 6-minute mark, and this is actually a timing that a lot of players, especially players that are not quite in Master League yet, actually take the third much too late. If you take a look at your Zerg versus Terran replays, when do you take your third base? You do want to take it around the 6-minute mark, a little bit before, a little bit after, it doesn't really matter, but definitely before the Hellions can reach your side of the map. Now, the problem with spawning cross position is right now that I'm not really able to scout exactly what is happening in his natural. I haven't quite seen any Reapers move out, I haven't quite seen any Hellions move out, and I'm not completely sure whether or not my opponent is gonna go for a Stargate. Now, or a Starport rather. As we see on the production tab though, my opponent is indeed going for a Tech Lab right now. He is going for a Starport as well, we can actually have a look at that. He is going to go for Reapers. Now, I am completely unaware of this, so I'm going to have to respond accordingly. So far though, I'm just making drones, really haven't made any units just yet, because I haven't seen any units from him either. Now I do see a couple of Hellions out, trying to fly in this overlord, but it dies right before I would be able to actually scout this starport right there. So just in case, I am gonna get a Roach Warren up right now. Now this may be a little bit of an awkward time for a Roach Warren, but it's just because I am unsure. I don't really know if my opponent is gonna go for a really, you know, a lot of Hellions. Maybe it's just saving them up in his natural and he's trying to overrun me. I don't know whether or not my opponent is going for Banshees or if he's just playing completely standard. Either way, I feel like it's worth the actual cost of the Roach Warren to simply just create it and maybe not even produce any roaches. Now I do see him moving across the map right now with a couple of Hellions, so I do likely make a couple of those roaches as well, but I do need to keep in mind that it might cost me quite a bit. Now I'm gonna get my spine crawler up at the third base, and I still haven't seen my opponent's units. I don't know really where they are at, but here they're gonna come in. There's 4 Hellions right now at my fourth base, or at my third base rather, and I'm trying to desperately move my units into buildings so I can actually try and not lose all of them. Well, I lost quite a couple right there. If you take a look at the workers killed, 3 workers in total killed right now. Not perfect obviously, but then again I managed to squeeze out more than I was usually able to, but not creating any units. So all in all, it probably evens it out pretty, you know, pretty badly, or pretty properly. So here we go, there's a couple of roaches out right now for me, and I am going to have to use those defensively. I was thinking of using them offensively, but right now I see there's a Banshee, so I'm gonna have to make a Spore Crawl on every single mineral line. Need to make sure I defend against this properly. Now I do not want to overmake defense though. If I overmake defense, I will simply just fall back behind really quickly, and as you can see right there, I actually scouted that my opponent had a command center up in the main base already, which is obviously his third command center, which means he is gonna go for a pretty quick third. So I need to make sure I at the very least keep even with his economy. So I need to make drones right now. Now he is doing a little bit of aggression right now. I will be able to push him back with the queens that I got. Gonna replace the creep tumors right away because I don't want to lose them, and I'm just trying to see what I can get done right now. Now he hasn't quite shown me any kind of cloak yet, so I don't think he has cloak right now. So I will be able to keep my queens out a little bit in the open and actually defend my creep tumors effectively. Now as you can see, I am however making a ton of drones right now. Actually misplacing the Baneling nest right there would obstruct any kind of Ultralisk later on in the game. I don't really want that, but does look like he indeed does have the Banshee cloak right now, so I need to make sure that I don't lose too many drones to this. I have Spore Crawlers out, however. I do have plenty of vision on them, but still can't really lose that much. Now, between my natural and my third base, I do not have a Spore Crawler out, so I don't really know exactly where my opponent is going to be located. Looks like he's going to target fire down my Baneling nest, however, which is completely fine with me. I actually don't manage to cancel it right there in the end, but ooh, almost will be able to lose a queen right there. Gonna try and target fire down his Banshees, and it looks like I managed to deal with those just fine. But all in all though, I did manage to actually start stacking up quite a bit of minerals and gas, and that is obviously something that you don't really want to have happening. Now I do see Hellions move up that ramp right there. Always a risky move on this map. Need to try and not lose all of these drones. If I line them up improperly, I will probably lose a whole lot of them. Need to make sure I actually managed to defend right there. So how many workers did that all in all cost me? It cost me 7 workers and my macro slipped. As you can see, it is currently 1300 minerals and 1300 gas, and that is just me being a bad player. Like, I probably should not have let that happen. So I need to make sure I get those minerals and gas down as soon as I possibly can. So I started +2/+2 as soon as I noticed that +1/+1 was done. I also started a Spire and I started Baneling speed as well as a fourth base right now. So the fourth base, I'm gonna try and get that one up and get some saturation going, because I knew for a fact he did have a third base out, so I know for a fact he is likely gonna out macro me very soon if I don't do so. So right now I managed to get some map control, right? I managed to defend everything he was doing. We managed to transition into the middle part of the game, and it looks like he's gonna go for more and more aggression. Now multiple drops are always a little bit annoying to deal with, but if you manage to scout it in time, it is completely fine. Now my creep spread is decent, but it's not quite where I would want it to be, so ideally I would want to be focusing on that a little bit more right now. But we see he's going for quite a bit of drops. He's actually pushing in the natural right now as well, with a couple of leftover Banshees right there, and he also still has the units at my third base, so going to have to make sure that I don't lose those randomly. Looks like there's a couple of Widow Mines with that army as well, so I'm going to have to morph a couple of Overseers. You can see in the production tab as well, but he is still being annoying with his double pronged aggression. Now I need to be a little bit careful, because obviously he can drop in the third, he can drop in the main as well, so I'm gonna split up my army right now and gonna try and not lose too much to these drops, which are gonna come out until these 18 Mutalisk are in production right now. Got a ton of mutas in production, gonna instantly saturate my fourth base as well, and I know that his drops are basically on a timer right now. He's trying to see what he can get done with his drops, but he knows it as well. He knows I'm transitioning into mutas, and he knows that he will need to move home very soon, so that's exactly what he's doing. 18 Mutalisk, however, are gonna come out very soon, and I am finishing up +2/+2 right now. So normally, this is where I would actually make a ton of units and try to go for a push, but not completely sure if that will be happening in this game. Knowing that my opponent already went for a couple of Widow Mines, I will likely have a pretty big risk if I do decide to indeed go for a push right now. So I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna actually make a ton more units though, because it looks like he is moving out right now, and I'm gonna morph a lot of Banelings. Some people ask me, look, how many Banelings do you need to make? Well, basically just how many you feel like is necessary. I saw that there was a huge ground army out, and there's really no reason for me to not make Banelings right now. Looks like I morphed them a little bit late. It always takes quite long to actually morph Banes, but I'm gonna have to push in right now. 13 more Zerglings in production. Let's move in here. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna individually move my Banelings into his Marine Clump, whereas my Zerglings and my Mutas are going to be on on attack command, and my actual Banelings on move command. So, gotta try and clean this up. Looks like I will be able to manage to clean it up for now, but as you know, Terran units are incredibly cost efficient. So even though I basically walked over him right now, I also lost quite a bit, and I'm only really 20 supply ahead, which is exactly what the Terran player wanted. So even though I managed to slam back that push, I will need to keep in mind that there will be a lot more Terran aggression coming very soon. So I'm gonna try and take the watchtowers right now, trying to morph more and more units as well, because this is usually where the Terran doesn't really stop attacking, and I'm going to try and transition into a third base, a third tech route, which is going to be my... Ooh, my Ultralisk. That is a painful loss right there. That's a whole lot of Banelings dying, but he is still trying to be aggressive. Now, I do have a ton of units right now. I don't really want to blow them up, though. All my Banelings on all of his Marauders. I need to be careful doing that, but I'm gonna try and go for a little bit of a counter-attack right now. I will need to try and clean up as much as I possibly can right now. So I do manage to actually overrun him for now. I am going to try and not lose all my mutas. Need to be careful. Going to try and target fire down the Medevacs, because those are the units that are actually going to stay in the game the longest. But I need to make sure I get some of this eco down. I thought I was doing that with those Zerglings. Turns out the Zerglings were actually trying to fight some depots, which is okay. But obviously he will not be supply rock right now. Now, does look like I will die, or I will lose most of my units, and I will be able to get out of there with my mutas. But did that do enough damage? If you take a look at the workers lost right there, currently I lost... I lost actually 17 workers in this game, and he lost 13 so far. So it is pretty even, considering there's mules out. And considering I have a big economy in general, but I will need to make sure that I don't simply get overrun. It is really easy right now in these sort of games to think that I have a huge advantage, but in reality, if you take a look at the actual income, if you take a look at the actual unit count, if you take a look at the upgrades, he probably would actually be ahead right now, even though I have more supply. So I need to get something done. Now, as you can see on the production tab, I am indeed switching into a Hive, so I do plan on going for ULTRALISKS, which are going to be useful, but this is going to be where I get a pretty big advantage right now. Trying to poke around my mutas, noticing, okay, there's actually no defense right now in the natural, and that managed to, or that actually allowed me to get a couple more SCV gills, which just adds up pretty quickly. See what I can get done once more. Now, this is not only actually costing him quite a lot of eco, it is also forcing him to not move out, and that's very important to keep in mind. As you notice, I am actually transitioning into a Hive, and I need to buy as much time as possible. I need to make sure that he stays in his bases, so I know for sure he won't be on my side of the map. Now, I do finish up my Hive right now. I'm gonna transition into a Ultralisk Cavern very soon. There we go. Gonna start +3/+3. Looks like he has some defense going on and repairing that missile turret right there. So I can't continue right there with my mutas, but I'm just trying to keep him back as long as possible. I don't want him to move out. Ideally, what I really want to have happening right now is actually finish up all my upgrades. I got +3/+3 incoming. I got Adrenal Glands coming, which basically just flat out increases the Zergling's DPS by 20%. And I also have an Ultralisk cavern coming with chitinous plating as soon as it finishes up. So ideally I want to buy all the time in the world to actually finish up all these upgrades. Now if you take a look at his army right now, here we go. He is already done with +3/+3. So this is where Marines become incredibly scary because they simply don't really die. So I'm just trying to do whatever I can to keep him back in his bases, using my Mutalisk to counterattack and trying to buy as much time as possible. Now I might have to take another fight before my +3/+3 finishes, but if I would be able, like just if it's a chance that I will be able to put my opponent back for long enough to let me finish all my upgrades, I will have a much more efficient fight. Now +3/+3 is already about halfway done. I got my first Ultralisk incoming as well, and my Mutalisk are still being as annoying as possible, regenerating a lot of health, and it looks like I keep forcing him to come back, which is basically allowing me to finish up my upgrades right now. So keep in mind, whenever you have Mutalisk out on the map, use them actively, even if it's just scouting for drops, even if it's just picking off dropships and medevacts and all that. Just make sure you manage to defend this properly, make sure you don't lose them though. Managed to pick off a couple of reinforcement units as well right there, which is nice, but it looks like I will be forced to pick another engagement right here if I'm not careful. My Mutalisk are trying to not get caught right there, but slowly but surely, Adrenal Glands is done right now, which is a lot of extra DPS for my Zerglings, and +3/+3 is about a minute from completing right now. So I am getting a little bit greedy right now with my Mutalisk, going to try and basically see whatever I can get done with them. Almost flew them in the main. I was contemplating putting them in the main base right now, but I decided to not do that. But as you can see, all of this aggression managed to actually allow me, or allowed me to actually finish up all my upgrades. So I got +3/+3 done. I got chitinous plating finishing up right now as well, which just straight up makes my army so much stronger. So right now I can actually start taking fights. +3/+3 is about to finish up, which means that my units are at the very strongest they can be, and looks like I managed to actually find another hole right there in his defense. Looks like he actually decided to not go for the defense anymore and simply go straight for the throat right now. But +3/+3 will be done. I'm going to have to move command my Banelings in there individually though. Going to actually attack move behind his army and then individually move command my Banelings, and he says GG. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. Hopefully this helped you out in your Zerg vs Terran macro game. As always, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you again. Bye!